what I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives, after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence.
Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised. This video is for entertainment and commentary purposes only. What unfolded inside Congress was nothing short of chaos. The chamber erupted with anger, disbelief, and frustration after Ilhan Omar's controversial comments about Charlie Kirk ignited a political firestorm. Almost instantly, the room transformed into a battlefield of words. Lawmakers like Nancy Mace and Marjorie Greene, MTG, wasted no time unleashing fiery responses, calling out Omar's remarks and demanding accountability, even her removal. The reaction was electric. Gasps filled the air, voices clashed, and outrage rippled through every corner of the hall. When Omar's comments were replayed, the tension became unbearable. Many agreed she had gone too far, and it was only a matter of time before the pushback exploded.
What purpose, gentlewoman from South Carolina, seeks recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution 713. Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and removing her from the Committee on Education and Workforce and the Committee on the Budget. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a lifelong advocate for freedom of speech, civil political discourse, and the political engagement of youth. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a man of deep faith, a husband, and a father to 2 young children. Whereas on September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on the campus of Utah Valley University while exercising his First Amendment right to freedom of speech. Whereas on September 11th, 2025, one day after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar gave an interview on Zateo's town hall with Mehdi Hassan in which she smeared Charlie Kirk and implied he was to blame for his own murder. Whereas on September 12th, 2025, 2 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar reposted a video on X, formerly known as Twitter, which disparaged the character of Charlie Kirk and those mourning his death. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X states Charlie Kirk is dead, and before the body got cold, the far right propped his...
The challenge came swiftly. Nancy Mace rose to her feet, her tone sharp and unyielding. With precision, she accused Ilhan Omar of showing outright disrespect toward Charlie Kirk, a voice followed by millions and influential in shaping political discourse across the nation. Mace warned that such rhetoric doesn't unite Americans. It drives them further apart. Her words sliced through the chamber's tension, commanding silence and signaling one thing clearly. She was fully prepared to confront Omar head-on.
Corpse up as a cudgel for their holy war. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at outgroups, demonizing those groups, and siccing his massive following on them. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a stochastic terrorist, an adamant transphobe. He denied the genocide happening in Palestine. He believed the subjugation of women, and in his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further blames Charlie Kirk for his own murder. Whereas Clause 1 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives provides a member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibility on the House. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar's actions in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk are reprehensible.
As Nancy Mace unleashed her fiery remarks, the chamber erupted. Applause clashed with angry shouts as lawmakers from both sides made their stances known. The tension was thick, every word adding fuel to the fire. Cameras caught Ilhan Omar's uneasy expression. She sat still, trying to maintain composure as criticism poured in from every direction. The divide was unmistakable. One side demanded her censure or removal, while her supporters insisted she was being unfairly targeted for political leverage.
And affect the dignity and integrity of the proceedings of the House and do not reflect the credibility on the House. Now therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee on Education and Workforce and removed from the Committee on the Budget of the House.
Georgia seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A.1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows.
Recognized.
Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Whereas elected members of Congress take an oath to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar took an oath of allegiance to the United States upon becoming a citizen, declaring, I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen. Whereas on January 27, 2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements.
Then came the powerhouse voice of Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, a lawmaker known for her unapologetic no-nonsense stance. She didn't waste a single moment. MTG charged straight at Ilhan Omar, accusing her of disrespecting the very values Congress was meant to uphold. Her words boomed across the chamber as she declared that attacking a figure like Charlie Kirk wasn't just reckless, it was dangerous. The room trembled with reaction. Cheers and jeers collided as MTG's fiery tone cut through the uproar. Drawing on Omar's past controversies, she claimed this wasn't an isolated incident but a repeated pattern of divisive behavior. She urged Congress to take a hard look at whether Omar even deserved to keep her seat. The chaos escalated. Supporters of Greene erupted in applause while her opponents shouted over her voice. Even seasoned lawmakers struggled to regain control as tension reached a breaking point. Meanwhile, Omar attempted to respond, but every attempt was drowned out by angry interruptions. Cries of "Remove her!" echoed through the chamber, leaving Omar visibly shaken and frustrated. Security was eventually forced to intervene to restore order. But by then, one thing was clear. No matter what Omar said next, it wouldn't be enough to calm the political storm raging inside that room.
Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Whereas Representative Omar continued, for as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discrimination.
Nancy Mace doubled down, insisting that leaders must remain measured and respectful, especially when addressing public figures like Charlie Kirk, who represents a powerful movement within America. She reminded the chamber that words carry weight, and in politics, their consequences can ripple across the entire nation. Her tone wasn't just critical of Ilhan Omar, it was a warning. Mace argued that remarks like these erode public trust in Congress itself. As the shouting intensified, Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, seized the microphone once more. Speaking as much to the crowd as to her colleagues, she condemned what she called double standards in Congress. MTG declared that if any Republican had made similar comments, they would have faced immediate censure. Her statement triggered loud applause from her supporters, while Omar sat in silence, unable to stop the rising wave of backlash. The scene felt less like a debate and more like a public trial, with Omar squarely in the hot seat. The climax came as chants for her removal echoed through the chamber. Members stood, some cheering, others demanding action, as the uproar drowned out Omar's attempts to defend herself. For many watching, this was a defining moment, not just for Omar's career, but for the widening divisions within Congress. The fury in the room reflected just how high the political stakes had become. In the end, Omar's remarks about Charlie Kirk sparked a firestorm that won't die down anytime soon. The fierce responses from Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene made one thing clear: her critics have no intention of letting this controversy fade quietly. For countless Americans, this was more than politics. It was a battle over respect, accountability, and the very values Congress claims to uphold.
Whereas these statements by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office. And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interest using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
As the chamber finally began to quiet, Ilhan Omar seized the moment to defend herself. She insisted her comments about Charlie Kirk had been taken out of context, that her critics were twisting her words for political gain. But her explanation fell flat. Lawmakers shook their heads. A few even laughed in disbelief. The damage was already done. No clarification could undo the outrage that had already spread through Congress and across the nation. Nancy Mace struck back immediately, reminding everyone that this wasn't the first time Omar's words had sparked backlash. She argued that this was part of a troubling pattern, not an isolated misstep. This isn't about silencing anyone, Mace declared. It's about accountability, about leaders understanding the weight their words carry. Her remarks drew firm applause, underscoring how many agreed that Omar's behavior had crossed a line. Then Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, stepped in again, pointing directly at Omar. Her voice thundered through the room. The American people deserve better. If you can't represent unity and respect, you should step down. The chamber erupted, cheers from her supporters, shouts from her opponents, and chaos filling every corner. Omar, visibly shaken, tried to keep her composure as criticism poured in from all directions. The hearing no longer felt like a congressional debate. It looked and sounded like a political showdown. Lawmakers tried to restore order and return to business, but every attempt was drowned out by chants, jeers, and applause. The controversy had completely hijacked the session. Omar's allies finally rose to her defense, accusing Republicans of exploiting the moment for political theater. They argued that her words were misunderstood, that the outrage was exaggerated. But instead of calming the storm, their defense only made it worse. Republicans pushed back harder, insisting that this wasn't about politics. It was about respect for the millions of Americans who felt insulted. The divide deepened with neither side willing to yield. MTG seized the spotlight once more, turning toward the cameras and addressing the American people directly. She framed Omar's remarks as not just an insult to Charlie Kirk, but to every supporter who stood behind him. Her fiery delivery transformed the hearing into a televised spectacle, part confrontation, part rally, energizing her base while leaving Omar cornered and isolated. Security officers edged closer as the shouting intensified. The room buzzed with emotion, teetering between order and chaos. Every word was met with either cheers or boos. The tension made one thing unmistakably clear: this was no longer about a single remark. It was about months of pent-up frustration and political division bursting into the open. Amid the uproar, Nancy Mace delivered one final blow. She reaffirmed that while freedom of speech is vital, elected officials bear a higher responsibility. When you speak from Congress, she said, your words aren't just opinions, they're messages to the nation and the world. Her statement struck deep. Applause thundered through the room, sealing her point with authority. By the end of the session, chants for Omar's removal had grown louder and more organized. Some lawmakers began openly calling for a formal vote. Omar sat silent, her earlier defiance gone. The exhaustion on her face told the story. The momentum had shifted, and her opponents now held the upper hand. When the gavel finally struck, the chamber remained divided, buzzing with intensity. Omar's comments about Charlie Kirk had spiraled into a full-blown political earthquake, shaking the foundations of Congress itself. Nancy Mace and Marjorie Greene had seized control of the narrative, amplifying their voices and leaving Omar politically isolated. Whether she's ultimately removed or not, this confrontation will be remembered as a moment when outrage, ambition, and ideology collided under one roof, exposing the deep divisions and raw emotions tearing through the heart of American politics.